Okay, this video is called Fluoride. Is it safe? And it's all about the effect that fluoride has on the body. Where this came from was my family was making fun of me for having blue teeth. And the reason for that was I was eating blueberries and they stain your teeth just like they'll stain the sink. And so I said, okay, go brush your teeth. And I don't usually brush my teeth with toothpaste because you don't really need it if you don't eat sweets or acidic foods. And I'll still brush with a plain brush just to get the biofilms off there and which bacteria might hide. But so anyways, I go to the grocery store and I see on over 99% of the toothpaste for sale, fluoride anti-cavity toothpaste. And I felt sad because what that means is that the population is clueless. If the companies believe it's a strong advertising point to put that on there, that means the population is hopelessly ignorant. I've known over 25 years about the major toxicities of fluoride, so we're going to talk a little bit about it. Here's a painting of Cicero, the greatest of all Romans. This is where he's denouncing Catiline. Okay, here it's by Caesar Macari in 1889. So anyways, quote from Cicero, "To not know what happened before you were born is to forever remain a child." Okay, that's a Ciceronian sentence, by the way, when the climax comes right at the end. It's a confident professorial statement of something definitively known. Okay, Aristotle quote, "If you want to understand something, then study how it was made, where it comes from." Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about fluoride, why it's in your water and why that's not in your best interest. Okay, the aluminum companies are happy about it, but it's not really a good idea for the individual. Okay, fluoride has an incomplete octet. That means its outer electron orbital, whereby there's an unpaired electron. And so it's only got 7. It really wants an 8th electron, and it will fight and steal any electron it can get its hands on. This is called a free radical, to have that unpaired electron there. It is the most aggressive stealer of electrons of any molecule in the entire periodic table. So here's a periodic table. These are the halogens. Halo meaning salt, gen meaning to make. Halogens, they're all toxic. They all kill bacteria. I mean, we do need some chlorine in our blood, and we do need some iodine for making our thyroid hormone. But in general, think of how you can still prep with iodine. They're all toxic. You sanitize a pool with chlorine. Okay, bromine is used as a fire retardant. You can also sanitize a pool with bromine. These halogens are all toxic, and fluoride is the most toxic by far. This is the electronegativity, this number here. And out of all the elements in the entire periodic table, it is the most powerful grabber of electrons. And one definition of a pathogen is something that steals electrons. It steals electrons and it doesn't give them back. And that's exactly what fluoride does. It's a highly toxic molecule. Okay, a couple quick points. Fluoride has been used as a rat poison, an insecticide, and a wood preservative. Now, all of a sudden, something for those purposes promotes human health. Are you stupid? Up until 1940, it was only known as a poison. Then the aluminum companies needed a way to get rid of their waste product. They sort of, worked on doing some tooth dental studies to suggest that it would be helpful for teeth because they know it interacts with bone. Phosphate fertilizer companies also really wanted to get this waste product. Instead of losing money getting rid of it, they now make money on it by selling it for the water. Halogens kill stuff. Like I was saying, we talked about the electronegativity. It can cross the blood-brain barrier. It can be toxic to the brain. That's why they put it in so many neuropsychopharmaceuticals, because it increases the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. It does that because it forms very tight bonds with carbon. It can replace hydrogen, and it actually makes the molecule more lipophilic, more able to cross the blood-brain barrier. The other thing it does is it'll bind to proteins when they've got side chains that are positively charged, like these basic amino acids, histidine, arginine, lysine, hal. You can remember them that way. And they'll distort the shape of the protein. When they distort the shape of the protein, they can actually increase the risk of autoimmune diseases. So real quick overview of metabolism. We ingest glucose. It goes into the cell. It's phosphorylated to trap it in the cell. Goes through glycolysis, make a little bit of energy with glycolysis, that's anaerobic. Then the pyruvate goes into the mitochondrial matrix, the center of the mitochondria, runs through Krebs cycle, and that generates a lot of energy, but especially the electrons are sent to electron transport chain, ETC, for oxidative phosphorylation to make ATP. That's human metabolism. That's how almost all of our energy is made. Okay, so these are just the early enzymes in glycolysis. And then we get to the second half of glycolysis, the 3-carbon phase of glycolysis, and here's F- for fluoride. It inhibits this enzyme enolase. So that's also how it can kill bacteria in your mouth. It inhibits the number one most important energy producing pathway in the whole world, is glycolysis, by inhibiting enolase. All right. Okay, here's a quick summary of mitochondrial anatomy. There's an outer mitochondrial membrane, usually abbreviated OMM. There's an inner mitochondrial membrane, IMM. Here it is, IMM. There's an intramembranous space, and this is between the inner mitochondrial membrane and the outer mitochondrial membrane. This is where the protons are pumped into this space to generate a proton gradient. Okay, the center of the mitochondria here is called the mitochondrial matrix. It's worth knowing a little bit about mitochondria because they're in the center of all energy production of life, and tons of diseases are related to the mitochondria. So just a quick overview summary of what happens in metabolism is that electrons, well, first of all, hydrogen is stripped off of these molecules. We're basically breaking up glucose to get energy from it. And when you strip off a proton, that's really a combination, a hydrogen, that's a combination of a proton and an electron. Okay, and the same thing happens more extensively in Krebs cycle. Krebs cycle, also called TCA cycle, tricarboxylic acid cycle, and it's like a harvesting machine. It chops off CO2 units, and these are exhaled by us, through the lungs, and then it chops off 2 hydrogens at a time, and these are used in electron transport. Here's just another mnemonic of it, sort of showing where the 2 carbons go when they come in from the pyruvate to acetyl-CoA to make citrate. So anyways, just a sort of a repeat in a little more detail. All right, now here's the enzymes of Krebs cycle that are inhibited by F-. It inhibits aconitase, isocitrate dehydrogenase, and succinate dehydrogenase. So it messes up Krebs cycle. This is going to tremendously limit energy production, okay? That's not good. We need energy for everything. Okay, here's a quick summary of electron transport. The electrons are passed from weak molecules that have a weak binding with the electron to molecules that have a very strong binding. The molecule in the periodic table of elements, second strongest at grabbing electrons, is oxygen. And that's why oxygen is the ultimate electron acceptor under normal conditions in the electron transport in the mitochondria. Okay, so you're going to need to know that oxygen is the ultimate electron acceptor. You have to have oxygen to run electron transport. The energy obtained by passing along these electrons, sort of like a fireman's bucket brigade, is used. It's coupled to pumping protons into that intramembranous space within the mitochondria. And this builds up a proton gradient. Then in the end step, so this is complex 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here is complex 5, then the hydrogen protons are brought back into the matrix, and that's coupled to energy production because it's very energetic to let a proton pop out of this high pressure area of a high proton gradient, and that is coupled to producing an ATP, adenosine triphosphate, which is the energy currency of a cell. An ATP is like a $20 bill in a cell. Okay, here's just one more picture of it. The electrons are passed down to eventually get to complex 5, protons brought back in, you make ATP. And that's how energy is made. That's the vast majority of energy made in the human body. Through the mitochondria, you make about 18 times as much ATP as you do from things like glycolysis, anaerobic metabolism. Okay, so what's the point of all this? Fluoride blocks complex 4. So these are the most important energy pathways in your body: glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and electron transport. F- blocks all of them, okay? That's bad. It's a poison, okay? I mean, I don't know if I can state that anymore, obviously. I'm going to go into a lot more detail about the varieties of ways that it's toxic, but we wanted to start off with this, that all 3 of the major significant pathways are blocked. Okay, that's it for this part of the talk. This is part 1.